Hi guys. Okay, today we're doing a car video for the wrap up because with it being summer, I have a lot of people in my house. Not really, there's like 4 of us total, but everyone's coming in and out and kind of talking loud, and so we're gonna do a car video this time. Just went and got lunch, went to the mail. We had a package for my mom show up, so I went and got that. But let's get to what you guys really care about, which is the wrap up for this last month for May. Okay, because I'm not at my house, I had to go through my my Bookmori little book tracker for last month. I wrote them all down on my grilled cheese container that I had for lunch so that I know what order I read these in. And I also totaled up. So I read 10 books this month, and I read 5 romance, 2 fantasy books, 1 dark romance, and then 1 mystery, and then 1 YA. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait. Yeah, that's all of them. And so that's kind of how my month got all split up. I think getting into summer, I'm really into the romances right now, and just wanting to read some happy, fun romances. So that took up half the month with those kind of books. I had a rough start getting into this month. It took me like 2 weeks to even read a single book. So yeah, that's kind of how that went. But let's just jump into it. So I started off the month with Tethered Souls by Miranda Grant, and I gave this one 2 stars. This is the dark romance I read. I feel like I want to keep trying dark romances because I've only read like one other one besides this. I just felt like this one, to me, I know some people love it. Like, I'm in a Facebook group and people love this book, and maybe I just need to try a different book from this author, but this one was kind of harder for me to follow personally. Just like the plot was really different than what I'm used to, and so it was harder for me to follow, which that no issue with the author and her style of writing and stuff. It was just harder for me to follow. That's why I rated it that way. But I think I am gonna try a dark romance again, maybe this coming month. We're already in June, so maybe this month, maybe I'll wait till it's like fall time, because maybe I just need to be in the mood for it more. Not really sure, but gave it a 2-star. It is very dark, very spicy. Check the trigger warnings before you read it. I felt like it got to a point where I was just kind of skim reading it like as fast as I could just to get done with it. I'm a person who I hate DNFing a book, and so I just kind of skimmed through it. but definitely make sure you know what you're getting into with this book before you start it. And then next I read Emerald Green. I was trying so hard. I borrowed this from the library. I tried so hard. I was like probably 60% into it, and it was just going so slow, and I felt like we kept repeating the same things that was happening in the first 2 books of this series. This is by Kirsten Gier, I think, and I gave it 2.5 stars. I need to start with that. And it was just really hard for me to want to keep reading it because it was so slow. It kept repeating things, and I just felt like the plot wasn't progressing any, and the relationships weren't like, nothing was happening until like the end of it. But I was like 60% into it, and then I ended up getting it on Libby on audio, and I just listened to it in the car when I went and spent a weekend with my friend, and I took like 2 hours to drive there, and so I just listened to it the whole ride there and finished it like that. But it was rough, but I finished it. Overall, I would probably give that series like a 3.5 maybe. I remember loving it as a like middle school aged kid, but so maybe I'm just aged out of that. I just remember really loving it as a kid, and then upon the reread, I did not love it. So I think if you're not into books that are slower paced, definitely this is not the one for you. But it has a cool, like, premise. Is that the word? Because it is time travel and, like, that kind of thing. So I think the concept, that's the word I was looking for. The concept of it is cool. It was just really hard to get through that last book. And then I read Powerless by Lauren Roberts, and 5 stars. I love this book. I read this fairly quickly. I think I read it in like 4 days, because we were traveling while I read this, and so I just read it while we were driving in the car. And I put off reading it because I was like, I need to read this closer to when the second book comes out, because everybody keeps saying it ends on such a big cliffhanger, and it does. And I love Kai. He's such a precious little goofball, and I love him. And I do like Kit. I am interested to see where Miss Lauren Roberts takes his character in the second book, if we'll get to see more of him. Love Adina. That's all I'll say about her. I love her. I love Peyton. I feel like she is such a good main character, and I have no notes because I also love her backstory and like how she, like her background that you learn in the story. I don't want to give anything away, so I'm trying to pick my words very carefully. I have read the novella to this. This will be later in the wrap up. But it's just, I just love everything about this book. I don't want to spoil anything. I bought this book with the purple flowers first. I saw this at Barnes literally like probably like 2 months ago, and I snatched it up so quick. So I have 2 copies of this. I think I'm gonna give one away when Reckless comes out, so stay tuned for that. And it was such a good book. It pulls on your heartstrings, and it kind of felt a little bit Hunger Games-esque with the trials, which I thought was pretty cool. And it was very visual. Like, I could see the different scenes and like where they were, and the trials and the different balls that they attended, and just like I felt like it was very visually well done, and that I could imagine it super easy, which I can imagine books fairly easy anyways, but this one was like no effort to visualize, which I loved. And then I listened to One of Us Is Next by Karen M. McManus, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. I liked it. I think it's been a while since I read the first book, but I think I liked this one better than the first book. I did feel like it was kind of just, I don't know. I felt very, not bored for the story, but I felt like whenever I put it down, I didn't want to pick it back up immediately, which I do look for in books. I want ones that I just can't stop reading or listening to, stuff like that, and I didn't feel that with this one. But I will say the ending was so crazy, like just wild, and the secrets that come out, and I think her name's Maeve. One of the main characters is Maeve, and like what's going on with her, it made me kind of sad for her a lot of the times. I don't know. I felt like this one would have been better. I would have rated it higher if I had watched it as like a show. That one I just didn't really connect to as much. I do want to read the third one, I think it's the last book. I think it's just a trilogy. But I do want to read that one. This one made me want to go into that one, but the first book didn't make me want to go into the second book, which is why it's been like a year and a half since I read the first book, so that was odd. Anyways, next. Oh my gosh, then I finally read Happy Place by Emily Henry, and this is probably my favorite book of the year. Yeah. I will have to go through all the books I've read this year to make sure that is a factual statement, but this is my favorite book of this month for sure. I had been waiting because I didn't read this when it came out in hardcover, because I have all the paperbacks of the other ones, and I have this weird thing where if they're not matching, I won't buy it. Most of the time. Sometimes that is not true. But for this, it is true. And I just loved this. I loved that it was heartbreaking throughout the whole time. It was very bittersweet. I gave this one 5 stars. I gave it 6 stars. One of my top faves. This took the top spot of all my Emily Henry reads. It beat out Beach Read, which is crazy because Beach Read has been my absolute favorite since I started reading Emily Henry books. What else do I want to tell you about this one? Win, love him. I love him. I'm actually going to put a picture right here of who I imagine him as, because I was buddy reading this with my friend Kim that you guys have seen on here before, and we wanted to like put our little, what we picture them as, and so we sent those to each other, and this one we both agreed like it's just very Win. Anyways, so I love Win. I love his character so much. I love what we learn about him. I won't tell you what we learn about him because that's kind of a little bit of spoiler, but I love that just adds to his character so much. It brings in such depth to him. I love, isn't her name Harriet? Yeah, I love Harriet, and I found myself relating to her in ways that are a little bit sad. It's also nice to read about characters that you can relate to. I think a lot of Emily Henry's book characters I do relate to because they do go through real life things. I feel like I've heard people say, like Destiny on here on YouTube, she says that Emily Henry and another author very similar, they write literary fiction with a subplot of romance, and this is 100% what this is, because I feel like it dealt a lot more with just like what was going on during their vacation as friends and their dynamic as a friendship group and how that has changed through the years with a little bit of the romance on the side. And my friend, so Kim, she did not like the ending of this. I loved the ending of this. I think if it would have ended in any different way, I think I would have hated this book. So I'm glad that it ended the way that it did. Yeah, that's all I'll say about this. Love this. And then I read Reckless by Elsie Silver, and I gave this 5 stars. This was the month of 5-star reads and 4.75-star reads. Reckless, Elsie Silver, 5 stars. I love Theo Silva. I love Winter. I love their dynamic. This is not a spoiler because it tells you this in the description. So if you don't read descriptions, just skip a little bit. But so this is not a spoiler. This is one of the only books that I have liked lately that has the pregnancy trope. I usually hate that trope so much, but I feel like this one just added to the story because their communication, once we get over the first little bit that happens and you find out that's why that happens, the communication after that is top tier. And it wasn't like she was keeping it a secret from him or anything, which I appreciate so much. I love that they have a healthy relationship. The issue in the romance book doesn't have to be this bad relationship or the way that they interact with each other. It can be outside factors that are the problem, and they have to deal with those, but they deal with them together as a team. Needless to say, love Theo. I love that Winter is supportive of him and his dreams of being a famous bull rider, and I feel like her wanting him to keep going and keep progressing in his career and his dream makes it so much better because just the way that they support each other, and she doesn't want him to stop bull riding just because they're in this relationship now, or that they have a child together. Then I read Powerful by Lauren Roberts, which is the novella to Powerless. Look how cute and little it is. It's so adorable. So I read this one. It's very short. I read it in like a day on a car ride, and it was so cute. I cried so much. I won't tell you anything that happens in this book, but it is from Adina's perspective, and it kind of happens during the first book, so you could honestly tandem read this with Powerless, and that would work really well, actually. And what's his name? Mac? Yeah. His name's Makoto, but I think he goes by Mac. But it's about them. That's all I'll say. I gave it a 4.75. It was so close to a 5, but I honestly can't stop thinking about it, so I might bump it up to a 5 if I continue to just think about it all the time. So I'm so excited for the next book to come out. You can't even tell me how excited I am, because I'm not even making sense right now. And I read The Rule Book by Sarah Adams, and this one it's in the same universe as The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. It's like interconnected standalones, kind of. So he is on the same team as Nate from Cheat Sheet, and so you get to see them kind of make a cameo in this book. But basically, so Nora, this girl, her and Derek used to date in college. She breaks things off. We don't know why until later, but that does get explained. She becomes a sports agent, and he becomes a big professional NFL player, and he ends up getting injured, and while he is recovering, his agent retires, and so he needs a new agent. She is just getting started into agencying. She's just getting started into being an agent, and so she's looking for clients. The people that she works for assign her to him to be his agent, and so he is set on revenge because she broke up with him in college. So he's like, you know what, I'm gonna be the worst client. I'm gonna make her do so many different things for me that she quits, because he just doesn't want her to be his agent. But then it's on the back, so I'm not spoiling this. They go to Vegas to do a sponsorship for him. While they're there in Vegas, they end up getting drunk together, and they wake up married the next day. And so then they have to pretend like they are actually wanting to be married to each other, and they go on a honeymoon, and they work it so that it's not bad publicity for either one of them. Marriage of Convenience is probably the closest to what this is. But then they start clearing the air of what actually happened when they broke up in college, and kind of why that all happened. And it was really good. I gave it a 4-star. It was cute. It was not my favorite, but it's a great summer read, and I've had a lot of fun reading this book. It was good. And then I read Hopeless by Elsie Silver. This is the last book in her Chestnut Spring series. It's about Beau, I don't know if he's the oldest or youngest or middle child, who really knows, but he was in the Canadian military, like special forces type thing. I'm not from Canada, so I don't know exactly what that's called. I think it's similar to the Marines for the US. But so he got injured, you learn that in some of the first few books, that he gets injured, and his feet actually like got super burned and had to get skin grafts on them and stuff, so he's really self-conscious about that. He's dealing with trauma because of that. And so he starts to just go, he's back in civilian life. He's not allowed to, like, he can't be in the military anymore because he was injured so badly. And so he just starts going out to drink at this bar that good old Bailey works at. And Bailey's so cute. So here's another thing. It's a age gap romance. I almost said Cade. My goodness, that is my favorite brother. Beau is actually in his 30s and Bailey is in her 20s. I think they're like a 10-year age gap. So she works at this bar and she's a bartender, and she is a Jansen, and the Jansens and the Eatons, which is Beau's family, they do not get along at all. But Bailey is very different from her brothers. Her brothers are like they sell drugs, and her dad is running from the police, like just crazy things. And they treat her so badly, but she wants to save up enough money to be able to leave the small town that they're from, because everyone kind of treats her bad because she is a Jansen. And so she wants to save up this money to leave and be able to go get a degree. And so she is like trying to get a second job and just like save up this money. Because the bartending job, it's fine money, but she doesn't get very many shifts or anything. Anyways, they strike up a conversation one night at this river that divides their properties that they live on. And they get talking, and she tells him that she wants to try and save up money to leave town. And he proposes that they become fake engaged so that people start treating her better, because she's like a future Eaton. And that way she can get a second job and she can save up more money. And it's like him trying to prove that it's not her last name that's what's making people not give her a second job or give her a chance or anything. And so they become fake engaged. And so I just love it so much. I gave this one 4.75 stars. It's so good. Their relationship progresses, and I will just leave it at that because I feel like any more will spoil it. So yeah. And then the last book I read this month was Bridgerton #3, An Offer from a Gentleman. So this one is Benedict's story, the second oldest brother, and the girl's name is Sophie. It's kind of like a Cinderella trope where she is an illegitimate daughter of an earl. I think it's an earl. And he remarries to a lady that has 2 daughters. One of them is like really, really mean to her, as is the mom, like the stepmom. And the earl ends up dying, and so they start treating her more like a maid, whereas when the earl was alive, he treated her just like he wouldn't claim her as his daughter, even though everyone knew. But he provided for her still, and she still lived in his house and stuff, just as a they call it something, but it's like as a dependent. He claims that she is either his cousin's daughter or his brother's daughter or something like that. And so he takes care of her until he dies, and then the stepmom starts treating her like a maid. She meets Benedict at a masquerade ball, and then after that they meet 2 years later, and he doesn't remember her at all, because it was a masquerade ball, so he didn't really know who she was. And she nurses him back to health after he gets sick from the rain. And he starts to fall in love with her, and she also loves him. She's loved him since the ball where they met, but she knows that because she is an illegitimate daughter, that she can never marry him. So it's like that's the main conflict, is that they're both in love with each other, but like in society's eyes they cannot marry, which is really sad. But it was good. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't my favorite, but I did get through it pretty fast. So those are all the books that I read this month. Again, I got a lot read off of my physical TBR, and I'm so proud of myself because that's so nice to see my physical TBR going down even just a little bit, because there's so many books on that freaking TBR, as you guys saw in my last video. But I'm really excited for the next of this Lauren Roberts series to come out, and I will be reading the next Bridgerton book fairly soon, which is Colin and Penelope's book, which I'm so excited for the part 2 of the TV series to come out this month. That's all that I have for you guys. I will see you guys in the next video, and yeah, okay, bye!